I'd like to begin by first of all thanking Rabbi Amram Shilita for his wonderful and beautiful work. Such a zchut to be part of this project under the auspices of Maran Rabbi David Sabah Shilita, who's given me the zchut to share with you today feelings and ideas that pertain very much to the day of Tisha B'Av. Dvarim hayotzim min halev, nichnasim el halev. I hope that my lev is able to be given over through the video, through the camera. Be'ezrat Hashem, dvarim hayotzim min halev, nichnasim el halev, and should have a effect and an impact. Be'ezrat Hashem. We read a few weeks ago in the Parashat Chukat, the Torah tells us, Al ken yomru hamoshlim bo'u heshbon. Chachamim, the Gemara in Masechet Bava Batra tells us that hamoshlim is referring to moshlim beyitzram. Moshlim beyitzram means those that rule over their yetzer hara. And they give us an advice. The advice that they give us is, as the Torah tells us, Bo'u heshbon. Chachamim tell us that the intention of the Torah is to tell us, to teach us, to make a heshbon. Bo'u unehashev heshbono shel olam. Heshbono shel olam, to make a reckoning, a heshbon, an evaluation, a calculation of our status, where we are standing in Avodat Hashem. The Gemara tells us, בואו נחשב חשבונו של עולם, הפסד מצווה כנגד שכרה, ושכר עבירה כנגד הפסדה. הפסד מצווה כנגד שכרה. When a person has an opportunity to do a mitzvah, he has an opportunity to accomplish a mitzvah, and he doesn't, he should understand and make a heshbon. Hefsed mitzvah keneged schara. When I lose out on a mitzvah, what am I truly losing out on? I'm losing out on a schar of olam haba. I'm losing out on a schar of olam hazeh. Schar avera, when I do an avera, I benefit from the avera. But I have to reckon, what does it mean? A schar avera. A schar avera is something that relates to olam hazeh. It's time bound. Keneged hefseda, the hefsed that I lose, the loss, is a loss that's eternal. And this is the heshbon that the Torah wants us to make. Hefsed mitzvah keneged schara, schar avera keneged schara. A mitzvah that is accomplished is eternal. It's nitzhi. Whereas in avera, true, you benefit from the avera, but the avera is time bound. What does it mean when Chachamim tell us cheshbono shel olam? It's an eternal heshbon. And the Hafetz Chaim tells us that cheshbono shel olam means by understanding what eternity is. And he gives a mashal. Mashal lema davar domeh. If someone would fill up a room, a regular standard room, and fill it up with grain, and ask someone, a professional, how long would it take if a bird would eat up from this pile of grain, one grain every 2 weeks? How long would it take him to finish this pile of grain? And he would tell him a specific time. How long would it take if you had a silo, a wagon full of grain that's pulled by a train, those huge containers that store wheat, that store grain? How long would it take for him to eat up all that grain? Even longer. How long would it take for him to eat grain pecking at the grain, one grain every 2 weeks, when it's filled to the top of the Empire State Building, lemashal, he would also give him a time. It would take very long, but it's time bound. Says the Hafetz Haim, how about if we have grain that's filled from here all the way to the sky? We would relate to that as something that's irrelevant. That for us is forever. That takes forever. Yet the Hafetz Haim says that also has a time. It might take a very, very, very long time, but that is time bound. Whereas, says the Hafetz Haim, when we speak about Olam Haba and we speak about Nitzchayut, we speak about Cheshbono Shel Olam. It's a Cheshbon that is eternal. It's about eternity. That is something that is not time bound. That is forever and ever and ever. This is a mitzvah. And on the other hand, the opposite, what an avera means. An eternal loss or an eternal gain. This is the cheshbon that we must make. The Chafetz Chaim is known to all of us. The Chafetz Chaim would make this cheshbon lemaaseh in a practical way. Stories that are told about the Chafetz Chaim going into a room, locking himself up in the room, and you were able to hear the Chafetz Chaim playing out the din v'cheshbon in Olam Haba, crying out, Yisrael Meir, from the city of Radin. What's with your Torah? What's with your Avodat Hashem? What's with your Gemilut Hasadim? And he'd be crying and realizing that even though it's very scary, but he's still around in Olam Hazeh, and he has an opportunity to gain more mitzvot, more Torah, and more Gemilut Hasadim. The Chafetz Chaim would practically, on the clock, make a cheshbon. How many words could a person speak in a minute? And he calculated that a person is able to speak 200 words a minute. And 200 words a minute means, as we all know from the Vilna Gaon, every word of Torah is a mitzvah. The opportunity that we have in 1 minute of learning Torah is 200 mitzvot. So if we make a simple hashbon, for us, you ask someone what time it is. It's 12:58, 12:59. For all practical reasons, you could expect the response to be, it's 1 o'clock. Lemaaseh, how much of a difference does 1 minute make? That's when we relate to time. But if time means Torah, and Torah means mitzvot, and Torah means hashbon, 12:59 is not 1 o'clock. Because in that 1 minute, I have an opportunity to accomplish 200 mitzvot. 200 mitzvot means 200 mitzvot of eternity. Nitzchayut. The Mesilat Yesharim tells us, he brings down this Gemara of Bo Nehashev Heshbono Shel Olam to make this reckoning. And he tells us, as the Gemara states very clearly, Hamoshlim B'Yitzram, those that rule over the Yetzer Hara, they are the ones that give us this advice. And the Mesilat Yesharim says, not only are they the ones that give us this advice, but they are the only ones that could give us this advice. Why is this so complicated? It sounds so simple. You ask anybody on the street, what does a mitzvah mean? What does an avera mean? Everybody will tell you a mitzvah means Olam Haba. Everybody will tell you that a mitzvah means sachar. We benefit good. We get advantage from the mitzvah. Whereas avera is the opposite. So why do we need Elu HaMoshlim B'Yitzram? Why do we need those that rule over their Yetzer Hara? The ones that are standing on top. As the Mesilat Yesharim tells us, a mashal of a person that's lost in a maze, and there's a person that's standing on top of a tower, And he's directing him, telling him exactly which path to take in this maze. And the path that they're telling us is Bo nechashev cheshbono shel olam. Because us being under the ruling of the Yetzer Hara, we might know it, but we don't live with the yedi'ah, we don't live with the knowledge and understanding to its fullest. What it means, cheshbono shel olam, what it means, as the Mesilat Yesharim tells us, Hefsed mitzvah keneged schara. The Moshlim biyitzram, those that rule over the Yetzer Hara, are sharing with us this advice that if we want to make it, we have to live with heshbon. We have to live with evaluation. We have to live with reckoning. Mesilat Yesharim tells us that this inyan of cheshbon hanefesh, which I'm sure I'm not introducing to you as something new today, but the Mesilat Yesharim tells us, Hineni ro'eh tzorech la'adam shemidakdek v'shokel drachav devar yom beyomo. Something that a person has to do a cheshbon hanefesh every single day. Kasuharim hagedolim, like the big businessmen. At the end of the day, every single day, they have to make their cheshbon. How much did they make? What sells and what doesn't sell? What can make it? What can't make it? And one should set times and hours for this. The advantage and the benefit from one that lives with heshbon is tremendous, says Mesilat Yesharim. Halevai, that we should be able to make this heshbon every single day. If it's not every single day, it's one every 2 days, once a week, once every 2 weeks. But Tisha B'Av, at least, is a day that one has to make this cheshbon hanefesh, as we're going to see from the Rambam. A cheshbon hanefesh, as the Gemara tells us, a question was asked, Al ma avda aretz. It's a time for us to think, to reckon with our ma'asim, our actions. If we have a Hurban Bet HaMikdash, and we're still living in the Zman of Galut, why is it? What's the cause for this Galut? This, I think, is a Heshbon HaNefesh that one has to make. The Rambam tells us that the Tachlid, the goal of Tisha B'Av, in essence, all of the Ta'aniyot, all of the fasts, the Rambam tells us is in order to arouse and trigger in our hearts and to open up our hearts Darkei Teshuvah. It's not just about Avelut. It's about thinking. It's about Teshuvah. This to remind us of our actions, Maaseh Abotenu, Shaya Kemaasenu Ata, the similar actions that we are still accomplishing, that's not allowing the Bet HaMikdash to be rebuilt. We are somewhat responsible. Kol mi shelo nivne Bet HaMikdash b'yamav, the Bet HaMikdash is not built in our days, kilu neherav b'yamav, is as if it was destroyed in our days. Says the Hafetz Chaim, why is it so? Because there's a reason why it's not rebuilt. We have a part in this Hurban Bet HaMikdash. And one has to live with the Heshbon. I'd like to share with you the words of the Rambam in the beginning of Hilchot Ta'aniyot. The Rambam tells us that if ever comes a time that's a zman of tzara, distress, so Chachamim sometimes will decide to decree a fast. Everybody should know that this is due to our actions. And the Rambam tells us, if ever a person says, or something happens, and he says, war in Israel, missiles flying into Eretz Yisrael. And this time the Iron Dome was not able to catch all the missiles. And one says to himself, this is minago shel olam. It's something that happens. Countries go to war. This is something that's regular. Says the Rambam, harezu derech achzariyut. One who thinks like this is an achzar. He's cruel. It's a cruel way of thinking. It's not getting the message that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending him. And therefore, when it comes to Tisha B'Av, Rabotai, it's a tremendous time for us to make this Heshbon HaNefesh. Where are we holding? Mesilat Yesharim starts his Sefer with the famous words, Yesod HaChasidut V'Shoresh HaAvodah, שיתברר ויתאמת אצל האדם, מה חובתו בעולמו? To ask himself the question, what's my tachlit? What's my goal in this world? What am I supposed to accomplish? And what am I truly accomplishing? Where's my Torah? Where's my tefillah? Where's my gemilut hasadim? Am I living up to what's expected of me? This is the Heshbon HaNefesh. And Tisha B'Av is the day where one has to sit down with a pen and paper and list for himself different midot that he feels he should work on. Maybe intensify his limud Torah, more time of learning, more concentration in his tefillah, in his midot tovot, where he could excel. Sometimes it has to do with fixing midot ra'ot, his kin'ah, his jealousy, looking at others and asking himself, why does he have and I don't? This is the day of Tisha B'Av. To think a little bit, enter this world, as we say, the world of Nitzchiyut, the world of Olam Haba. I'd like to share with you an idea which I once heard from a close friend of mine. The Gemara tells us that Rabbi Yohanan was once walking with a student, and Rabbi Yohanan had a lot of real estate. And as he was walking with his student, he was showing him all the different real estate that he had. And he's pointing at a real estate and he's telling him, this field or this house I sold for this amount of money. And why did I sell it? I sold it so that I should be able to learn Torah. And that real estate, also the same thing. 3, 4 fields that he owned, that he sold in order to be able to sit and learn Torah. And his Talmid asks him, Rabbi, ma hinachta lecha, what did you leave for yourself? And Rabbi Yohanan responds by saying, I sold something that was created in 7 days, and I bought something that was created in 40 days, the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu being on top of Har Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights. What's the message? Didn't the student know that Rabbi Yohanan, the great Amorah, Torah was his life? You think he regrets what he did, selling his real estate in order to sit and learn Torah? And they tell us, Mashal lema davar domeh. Someone who sells his house, he was living in a small house, decent house, and he moves into a bigger home, much more wide and grandiose, much nicer. And he's still, I won't say complaining, but he's thinking back and he's still, I remember my old house. The sunlight was better in the old house. Or he might think to himself, maybe the air was coming in, was ventilating the home much better. So despite the fact that this house is much better, but there's always something that you miss maybe about the old house, even though it was much smaller. And Chachamim are teaching us, this is what the Talmid, the student, was asking Rabbi Yohanan. You sold all of this for Torah, but listen, if you had all of that, wouldn't it have been much better? And Rabbi Yohanan says, no, in my world of Torah, when it comes to Torah, in my world, Rabbi Yohanan's madriga, his level, Gashmiut, doesn't mean anything. There's no looking back. This is what he was teaching his student. Mem Yom, something that was created in 40 days. We all know that a child, a fetus, is created in 40 days. Yitzirat Havla, the creation of a fetus, is in 40 days. He enters a new world. That's the world of Rabbi Yohanan, the world of Torah at his level. And we are able to enter. We are able to connect to a certain level, to that world, if we work on it properly. It is known that there was a great tzaddik by the name of Rabbi Avraham ben Avraham, the Ger Tzedek of Vilna. This Ger Tzedek was living in the days of the Vilna Gaon, and his parents were very, very upset growing up as a goy. They were very, very upset that he decided to become a Jew, a convert. And they tried to persuade him to come back, but he didn't want to listen. They sent so many people to try and get him back, but he didn't want to listen. He wanted to be a Jew, and he was ready to die as a Jew. There's a Mesorah that the Sefer Yesod V'Shoresh HaAvodah was present at the time that they burnt the Ger Tzedek to death because he didn't want to come back to Christianity. And they say the story that before he was burnt, the one that was in charge asked the Ger Tzedek, I know you're going up as a Jew, and I know that the Jews up there have protection, as we say. I ask you for a favor. Please don't take revenge on me. So the Ger Tzedek told him something very powerful that we could apply to our everyday life. And the Ger Tzedek told him, I want to give you a mashal. There was once 2 children playing in the sandbox. They're playing with their sand toys. And one of the 2 children was the son of the king. He was a little boy. And his friend playing with the shovels, with the pails, he broke the shovel. So the son of the king was very upset. And he told him, wait till I become king. I'm going to take revenge. They're little children who, by the time you become king, who knows what's going to be. Many years later, the king died. And this young boy, once a young boy, was destined to be the king. And his young friend, was getting nervous. Maybe he's going to get me back for that shovel that I broke when we were little children. So he goes over to the king, crying, asking him for mihila. Please forgive me. Forgive me for breaking. If you remember when we were little children, I broke your shovel. Please forgive me. And the king looks at him and he says, do you think this is what I'm busy with right now? I'm a king. Look what I have to take care of. Look at what I have. I have to be busy about a shovel. Says the Ger Tzedek, Rabbi Avraham ben Avraham, to this goy, when I get to Olam Haba, when I get to the world of eternity, you're not going to carry any importance. Do you think I'm going to be busy with you? The Sachar in Olam Haba, what I'm going to be benefiting from in the Olam HaEmet, you have no place in that world. It's for us, Rabotai, to learn. A cheshbon hanefesh. If we connect ourselves to the Olam HaNitzchi, to a world of eternity, not to the Olam HaGashmi, in what's truly important in life, and enter a world of Torah, enter a world of Gemilut Chasadim, entering a world of Avodat HaTfilah, of Avodat Hashem. There's so many things that don't carry any importance. We look away from so many different things that could bother a person. Because what's important in life, what's the most important in life, is where I'm holding in my Torah. Where are my children holding in their Avodat Hashem? Where's my education for my children? What am I exposing my children to? That's what's important. And everything else is pettiness. This is chovato ba'olam. Yidbarer v'itamet etzel ha'adam ma chovato ba'olam. To understand what my obligation, what my tachlit, and what my goal in olam hazeh is, to be able to build myself and prepare myself for the olam hanitzchi, for a world that's eternal, as the Chafetz Chaim told us, forever and ever and ever. I'd like to finish with a story that I read about Hitler, Yimach Shemo v'Zichro, which again, when it comes to Tisha B'Av, we relate, or at least I feel in a personal way, relate to a Beit HaMikdash that many of us didn't live through, very few of us lived through. But we also lived through, not so long ago, what we call Simchat Torah, October 7th, which was also to us a level of a Holocaust. And Hitler, Yimach Shemo, in his beginning, when he was rising to power, had addressed an attendance of 75 people, was introducing his idea of taking power. And he emphasized to the people, the attendees that were there, that we have a choice to make. We have Jews that are staining the globe. We can't live together. We cannot coexist. It's either them or us. It's the Jews or it's Germany. And he said, and I choose Germany. The crowd cheered wildly at this statement that Hitler Yimach Shemo said. And the meeting kept on going till the people started leaving little by little. And Hitler sees at the corner of his eye that there's an older man standing in the corner of the room and he's smirking. And he goes over to him and he asks him, "Why are you smiling? Why are you smirking? Do you not believe I could do this? Do you not believe I could rid the world of this stain of the Jewish people?" And this old man said to Hitler Yimach Shemo, "I am a Jew, and I believe that you could do it. But I want to tell you something. The Jews in their history, if we study the history of the Jewish people, they went through the Galut of Mitzrayim. What did we gain from the Galut of Mitzrayim? We gained the Yom Tov. We gained the festive day or days of Pesach, Yamim Tovim. Many years later came Haman, who also wanted to get rid of the Jews. And from that we got Purim. Years later, we had the Syrian Greeks that came to attack us, assimilate the Jewish people. And we also benefited from that Yom Tov. We benefited Hanukkah. So Mr. Hitler, while you have chosen Germany, Hashem has chosen the Jews. Baruch asher b'harbanu mikol ha'amim. Hashem chose us. And the Yom Tov, the festive moments that we are going to be living through, if ever this happens, Mr. Hitler, is something that we will experience as being Jews in the Olam HaEmet, when Mashiach Tzidkenu is going to come. The Rambam tells us the end of the Hilchot Ta'aniyot, that all these days of Ta'aniyot, Kol Atzomot Ha'elu Atidim Libatel Limot HaMashiach, are going to be annulled. We're not going to have them anymore. Velo od ela shem atidim liot yamim tovim b'mesason v'simcha. These are days that are going to be turning to days of simcha. Tisha B'Av, we're experiencing Avelut, as we said, Cheshbon HaNefesh, a time of reckoning. But we don't say Tahanun. We don't say Vidui on Tisha B'Av, because this is a day that has in it potentially the potential, and Be'ezrat Hashem we are going to be living through the Yamim Tovim of these days, that are specific to the yamim of tzomot, of fasts. Yeh ratzon that we should be zocheh be'ezrat Hashem to see these days that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should turn them into yemei sason v'simcha. Rabbi Salanter told us that the day of Tisha B'Av, the level that one could reach on Tisha B'Av, the same way we look at ourselves, Motzayei Yom Kippur, going through Kaparat Avonot. Rabbi Salanter said that Tisha B'Av, one could reach the levels of Yom Kippur after Kaparat Avonot. But that only comes through Heshbon HaNefesh. And with the proper Heshbon HaNefesh, Be'ezrat Hashem, we should be zochet to see the binyan Bait Shelishi with Mashiach Tzidkenu Uva Litzion Goel Be'ezrat Hashem, to feel and experience the days of Simcha V'Sason Be'ezrat Hashem. These days should be turned over to days of festivities and Simcha.